We are now talking to Sports Illustrated NFL Draft Bible Assistant Scouting Director and Writer, Jack Borowsky. What's going on, Jack? How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Tell us how you got this job and how old are you? You look like you're 17 years old.
Yeah, so I've been following football my entire life, college, NFL, the draft. And yes, I'm young. I'm a freshman in college at the University of Miami. So how I got that was I started a podcast in college, in high school, interviewing college football players, because I felt like, they don't really have that at that time. And, now with NILs, they've got a bigger voice, but they didn't really have a big voice, in the Northeast, where I'm from, there aren't a ton of college football fans in comparison to SEC territory down south. So I said, you know what? I want to start a college football podcast and interview these guys, give them a platform. And my partner and I, who I do it with, we grew it to 330 interviews that we've done, and it's been a lot of fun. And through that, I got some writing opportunities, turned into SI and covering the draft for them, because my favorite part about the NFL is the draft, finding new players who are going to be good down the line and everything. So, I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a lot of fun, and added another element to the whole process of just watching football in general.
So when I found out you were coming from the University of Miami, I grew up a Florida State University fan, okay? FSU was my team. In the 90s, it really was dominated by FSU and University of Miami. I mean, you talk about all the draftees and drafters that were drafted in those years. It was dominated for 5 or 6 years. You look at the first and second rounds, they were really from the University of Miami and Florida State University. So I wasn't too happy when I found out that you were from University of Miami, but you look like a nice kid. So why don't we get into this year's draft, okay? The Jets, being that we're here in New York, we have the Jets and the Giants that could predominantly have two for the Jets and 2 for the Giants, top 10 draft picks. It's crazy. And then you have the Eagles that could have 3 first-round draft picks. I'm sorry, Detroit has 2 first-round draft picks this year. It's crazy. When you look at the first 5 picks of this year's draft, where do you see some of these teams and some of these players fitting?
Yeah, I think when you look at the top 5, it's most likely going to be some form of Detroit, Houston, Jacksonville, and then the Jets and the Giants, some way, shape, or form. I think that, it starts with the 2 edge rushers who a lot of people are talking about. Aidan Hutchinson from Michigan, who's a senior, finished second in Heisman voting, had one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen against Ohio State. Really was one of the main reasons they were able to be an extremely talented team and a high-powered offense. Hutchinson, background on him, he was and played second fiddle to to Kwity Paye. Sorry, he wasn't the guy coming in. It was Kwity Paye's team. It had been. They had a lot of good edge rushers. Both of them junior year. Kwity was the guy. And then Aidan's kind of taken over this year after a leg injury was the reason he actually came back to school. So Aidan's taken over, and I think when you compare him to an NFL player, it's J.J. Watt. His versatility, what he brings to the table. Watt, similar there. You could also say Joey Bosa, too. Really big edge rushers who can get after the quarterback with a mix of power and bend off the edge. Hutchinson, to me, is the best player in the draft. And I think with a team like Detroit or Houston, who are in a huge rebuild mode, they need to get a player like that, because he's going to come in and he's going to be a culture builder and he's going to set the tone defensively. And, there's nothing to him other than he's going to go out there and produce. Like blue-collar kid, plays for the Wolverines now. He's from Texas, so if Houston ended up with the first pick, I know he'd be fine going to whatever they have going on down there. So Detroit or Houston, whoever gets the first pick, I think one of those 2 teams will. I think they go with Hutchinson. The second best edge rusher in the class, most likely, it's going to be one of those two guys. Kayvon Thibodeaux from Oregon. He's more of your speed rusher, really talented player, 5-star recruit coming out. He'll be a true junior. Was thought of to be the number one guy going into the season. Hutchinson surpassed him, in my opinion, but I think those two are the guys. And then, just say Jacksonville is looking at 3. The draft falls off a cliff. This is a terrible draft class. I love Hutchinson. He's not on the level of a Chase Young. He's not on the level of a Myles Garrett or Jadeveon Clowney as a prospect. He's below them. I think Kayvon Thibodeaux is good, but I'm not looking at a clear-cut top 5 pick because when I watched him, and you specifically watched the Utah game, which was their conference championship game, and you think Utah, he's going up against Braden Daniels and just a mix of pretty mediocre offensive linemen. He didn't look that good. So, there's some concerns with him. He didn't get that much better, in my opinion. He'll probably be the second guy. And then after that, you got a whole host of prospects that I think are pretty mediocre and don't come close to what we had talent-wise in last year's draft. You guys were just talking about Micah Parsons. Micah, what he brought to the table and his potential, I don't think anyone in this class has what he has, and he went 12th overall last year. So I'm sorry for you Jets and Giants fans out there who are going to have very high draft picks this year and multiple, because it's not the year to have them. If you need a quarterback, I love Kenny Pickett out of Pitt, but you don't have a Trevor Lawrence or even what Zach Wilson or Justin Fields were as prospects. There's a huge drop off. So I think you have the 2 edge rushers at the top. Pickett's the top quarterback. And I think outside of that, Evan Neal, the tackle from Alabama, he's going to be a Mekhi Becton type. Come in day one, start for you at left tackle. You don't got to worry about the position for a decade. He'll probably be a top 5 pick. And then probably rounding out, I'd go Kyle Hamilton, safety from Notre Dame. I wrote an article. I think it was a hot take, but I think Kyle Hamilton's best safety prospect since Sean Taylor, if we're going to go the University of Miami route.
Hold on one second. Didn't you just say that this is not a good draft? Now you're talking about this
it's a
guy.
Safety. We're not talking about a top tier.
It's still a talent. They could get to the quarterback and obviously defend the defense and run that secondary of football. So that's a good player. I mean, that's adding a good piece to your defense.
Yeah, no, I think he's going to come in by year 3, be the best safety in the NFL.
Wow.
It's one of those things. 6'4", 220 pounds. You think about a player like that, and you think in the box hitter. This kid's got deep free safety range. Like you can leave him out there. He's gonna make plays. He can blitz. He can make plays. He's a mix of a lot of really good players. Like if it was my choice and I had to put a guy as like the top player, not taking into account positional value, he'd be that guy. It's just at what point do you take a safety? Is it 5 or is it 11 or 12?
If he could change your defense, you take him as early as you possibly can.
I'm with you on that. I just don't know if an NFL team will, because needs at tackle, defensive ends seem to kind of are the main focus, and then you have a couple cornerbacks in there who I think are pretty good. Derek Stingley from LSU is a big name who people have been talking about for years now. Was the best cornerback in college football as a freshman. Wasn't that good as a sophomore and got hurt as a junior. So you're kind of basing his draft stock off of measurables and freshman tape. How much do you want to do that? May make you a little nervous. Still think he's a top 10 talent in this year's class. But just overall takeaways from scouting these guys is it's not a year that you want to have a big need to find a generational kind of quarterback. Last year we had Trevor Lawrence. You could have said the same thing about Joe Burrow the year before. Kyler Murray was exciting, and we've seen what he's been able to do in the NFL. You don't really have that at quarterback. There's no elite receiver like a Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle, no Kyle Pitts. I like Evan Neal, the Alabama tackle I mentioned, but he's no Sewell or Rashawn Slater in my opinion. So yeah, it's just a weak class as a whole.
With the Jets and the Giants right now, there are 2 top 10 picks. The Jets are 4-7 right now. The Giants are 5-6 at the moment. And you were talking about it with Thibodeaux and Aidan Hutchinson and other guys that could go in that top 3. Also factor in, too, Detroit and Houston both need a lot of draft picks. They traded a lot away because they've had a lot of bad contracts, and they need a lot on their particular rosters. Detroit got some, obviously, from the Rams now with the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford swap. But could you see a scenario where the Jets or Giants might consider trying to trade up or also trying to trade back, too, if maybe, like you're saying, maybe there's not an obvious top 10 guy, an obvious pick there. Maybe they accumulate more quantity than quality.
Yeah, I'd go more quantity in this year's class. I think you have to factor in the COVID year, giving guys extra eligibility. It's a really deep draft. There's going to be guys drafted rounds 5 through 7 in this year's class, or even go undrafted, who last year could have been top 100 or fourth round picks. There's a lot of depth. So in terms of that, I think moving back is the way to go for both teams. I think acquiring picks for the future. Because when I look at this quarterback class, the quarterback position drives the draft. I mean, that's basically, it drives the NFL. That's how it works. If you want to go out there and you want to change your franchise, it's probably not going to happen by trading up, in my opinion, to get a Hutchinson or a Kayvon Thibodeaux, who I just touched on, aren't on the level of Chase Young or a Myles Garrett as prospects. So they're going to be really good players, in my opinion, but I don't see them being like these elite level difference makers that you would want to trade up to get. I think trading back's the way to go. The thing is, to make a trade, you need a partner. And who's going to want to move up to get the quarterback? That's really the position that you would think. I don't see a team trading up for Kyle Hamilton. I don't see a team trading up for Derek Stingley because it's a really good cornerback class as a whole. So I think the trade partner is going to matter. And when you're sitting there, Jets and Giants, when it could be a strange situation where you're controlling 4 picks in a row, what do you do there? Could I see a team like New Orleans trading up for Kenny Pickett? Absolutely. Philadelphia probably this year isn't going to trade with the Giants.
They could trade with the Jets.
They could trade with the Jets, but you have 3 first-round picks. Do you want I think it's for Kenny Pickett. I really think the only trade-up scenario I could see. Matt Corral, to me, the other quarterbacks, Corral, Howell, Carson Strong, Desmond Ridder, they don't have what it takes, in my opinion. If I'm sitting there with Philadelphia with 3 first-round picks, I'm going to trade all this capital to the Jets to move up to get one of them. I just don't think they're good enough to do so. I'd rather sit back and take one if they fall to me, similar to what the Patriots did last year with Mac Jones. I like Mac Jones as a prospect. Did I think he was worth trading up for? No, I thought they got good value at 15. That's where he should have gone. I didn't think that it required trading up. So I think, unfortunately, for the Jets and Giants, it's going to take a partner to move up. I just don't think there's enough QB talent there that it will get done. I mean, obviously, there are trades for other positions, but we tend to see it for quarterback. I just can't see that being the case this year.
So you brought up a good point about this being a very deep class, not maybe really full of the future Hall of Fame names, but there is going to be a lot of talent that's serviceable throughout their NFL longevity. In the 4th, 5th, 6th round, who's going to be the hidden gem that you go, yep, everybody missed on this kid, and that's a damn shame?
If there's a guy who I don't get to see a ton of attention surrounding, Darian Beavers, linebacker from Cincinnati. Kid's 6'4" and 255 pounds right now. I think he's going to play in the 260s. Zaven Collins. I think this kid is a very similar
prospect. You just made somebody very happy.
When you look at what he can do, he's your perfect Patriots-type linebacker, the Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins type. Kid can rush the passer, has incredible range, moves well. You put on his Cincinnati film. I think, Cincy, they're a top 4 team in the country, but they still don't get the attention they deserve. I think the kid's going to run in the 4.5s at 6'4", close to 260 pounds. That's unheard of. The way he plays, I think he's really good. I think he's going to rise. Could that make him a top 100, even maybe second-round pick? Yes, but based off of kind of where the general media has him, I definitely see him as a guy who, if you're needing a rangy linebacker who can also rush the passer, hybrid versatility, 3-4 end or 4-3 Sam, I think he's the guy. I really like him, and basically same measurables as Zaven. I think he's going to test better. Unfortunately, with Cincy and kind of them blowing out the majority of teams that they play, you didn't really get to see his full talent on display this season. But he's got all the goods. So he's my guy, definitely there. My quarterback, Western Michigan's Caleb Ellaby, if he declares. Last year, I think he had like a top 10 highest passer rating ever in college football. Unheard of. The guys he was like on the same list with, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Joe Burrow, and then it was Caleb Ellaby. Probably in that 4th, 5th round range is where he goes. 6'1", nothing special size-wise. Kid out-dueled Kenny Pickett early on in the season, beat Pitt. Pitt won the ACC. This kid out-dueled Kenny Pickett, beat Pitt. I think he's got the accuracy, arm talent, that it factor. He's a winner, and he's got special accuracy, so he's my quarterback. You need a guy, he could be the Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott from this year.